I'm going to go on to talking about Kolkata. And the social situation there is a lot more sensitive in the brothel in Kolkata. I mean, Gaylong's like a party. I'm very restricted as to what photographs I can take, and even if I take photos, I can't show them in public. The paintings are fine, though. There's a basic shame about being a sex worker, and there's layers of social structures and complexities I'm not going to pretend I fully understand. There is no plumbing. You bathe on the first level, and other than that, you have to carry water up flights of steps to cook in buckets. And there's a gully around the perimeter of each landing on each floor, and people urinate in it and wash it down with a scoop of water. They hang their laundry and block all the light on the inside. This is a small room where you have just enough space for the bed inside. And if you have a room like that, you have to cook outside. And this is on the top floor of the brothel, that's why it's light. This is a larger room, one of Shika's neighbors. And this is Shika. She's on the right side of me. Shika is the main sex worker that I work with. She's amazing. She's incredibly organized. She's a fantastic cook. I ate the most delicious meals in the brothel for 2 months. I never got sick, and that says a lot. This is a friend Malu, who is working for the NGO Durbar Mahila Samaniyi Samiti, and he's who first took me to the brothel. They call the NGO Durbar for short. And Malu was working with Durbar for about 12 years, until now he's just working on his artwork. But Malu's a sensitive artist who has a degree in English literature. He interpreted between Shika and I. Shika can also speak a little English. It's funny to hear some of the English words she comes up with. After we had about 4 days of scrumptious meals in a row, sometimes 2 different fish dishes in one meal with different sauces, the next day she tells me we're having hodgepodge, leftovers. I don't know where she learns these things. But first we just talked and hung out together, getting to know one another. Shika's incredibly open, she's self-assured, strong personality and character. She rents a room in the brothel that Durbar works in, but she doesn't belong to the NGO. She's also been working as a teacher to other sex workers to teach them about condom use and etc. Shika manages all my work. She could run West Bengal if she'd been given the chance. She has whom I'm going to work with that day all organized when I get there in the morning. And she has lunch prepared. I pay Shika and I pay the women 500 rupees. And it's about maybe $12 US an hour to pose. And each woman poses for about 1 hour. Did whatever they wanted. I wanted them to take responsibility. The women can talk from one level, from room to room, across the courtyard in the brothel. One day I told Shika about Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. I told her Bill Clinton said oral sex wasn't sex. Oh my God, the volume went up. Shika had to tell that story across the entire brothel. Then she came back to me and she said, the Indian Prime Minister doesn't talk about oral sex. They brag about Indian men and question me about the sexual prowess of American men. Here I'm painting Shika's son. Now let me show you some of the work. At first I did painted heads too, as I did in Gaylong, and then I moved into larger drawings. The women would also dress in their finest saris and put their bandi dots on their forehead, all looking as if they were married. You would never know that they were working in the brothel or living in the brothel. Sometimes it took me a minute to recognize them on the street. They looked so different. It took a long time before anyone dressed informally. Here's a drawing of one of the girls, and she's in one of the nighties they walk around in when they're not seeing customers. I did many double portraits of the women. I found that they sat better in pairs and could get more actionable gestures and interaction when they posed together. They come in talking to each other, and I would try to just observe them really quickly, how they moved, what roles they played between each other. And then when I would see a movement that seemed to catch some kind of energy, I would say stop and just stay that way, and I would begin placing them on the picture plane. I would start moving them around the canvas and see how they fit into the picture plane, and then I would start drawing the parts of their bodies that would intercept each other, just in case one of them couldn't sit still. And if there was one of the women that couldn't sit still, I'd let her go, and I'd just draw the one at a time, draw the first one, and then bring her back. You can see a few of these. The atmosphere in Shika's room is pretty calm, just talking back and forth, putting their heads in the room, people putting their heads in the room all day. I'm listening to sounds throughout the brothel, people yelling stuff to each other, and it wasn't often that I heard anything that sounded aggressive. The priests would come in and do the pujas in the evening, burst into the room while I was painting. But working on the roof, people were screaming at their kids, coming in with food and drinks. Kids were playing and running around me. And there was this little girl, Pinky, she's actually the oldest child in this picture. She was humming Beethoven's Ninth Symphony for a week straight. There she is there. Talk about globalization. I get them involved in my materials and get them preparing my canvases. You see, the brothel is actually very boring. You can't go anywhere. You'll lose a customer. So the women sleep a lot. Some of the customers call and make appointments, but most just walk in. Here's a couple, and they're married, and she lives in the brothel. He knows about her profession, of course. But he was so sweet to her and so caring to her the entire time I was drawing. Several have lovers that they call husbands. Others want nothing to do with men. It's only a business. The kids watch me the whole time. They play with the paintings. They make up stories about them. They're really sweet. In my experience, it looks like Durbar did an incredible job educating these women. Whereas the women in India, they're in the brothel year after year unless they die. I see them as trapped. The majority of them are there because they had a husband who terrorized them, and they ran away from him, and in doing so, they were ostracized from their family and their community. And I feel like they're a forgotten society. In Calcutta, it's not only a lack of money that keeps them in the brothel, but a lack of education and social stigma. They're a forgotten people. I want to document the women's images, but at the same time, it's insufficient to only document. I want the work to come full circle and integrate into their lives. I'm in the process of trying to connect with some women's groups in Calcutta to give my work some support. The women themselves are my biggest advocates. Ultimately, I would like the work to be able to give back to the women monetarily. This is the night I'm leaving. All the kids were carrying my paintings over their head, including this guy, and all the women were surrounding them, and there was a procession down the alleyways, and they were all hugging and kissing me.